Yep, I see it.
Cool.
Cool. I just retweeted it.
All right, cool. Well, let's get into it. I'm gonna play my theme song for just probably 30 seconds since we're on a time crunch, and then we're gonna get into it.
Cool, man. Sounds good.
Okay.
We're riding. Hype happy hour, talking about life, so you might feel empowered. Hype happy hour, tornado on the mic with a guest giving flowers. Hype happy hour, tools, interviews, provide life tapping power. Hype happy hour, positive and light with advice, build your tower. Happiness.
Let's go. I am Gentle Tornado here, Hyped Happy Hour, episode 26. Just on an absolute mission to make positivity louder. I created a company called Hyped. Hyped is an acronym that stands for happiness, inspiration, positivity, enthusiasm, and dreams. If you look at the logo in the bottom left, you see an H with a heartbeat in the middle, because here we are just motivated to make every single heartbeat count and every single moment count and get better every day. Today on episode 26, I am joined by someone that is absolutely incredible, a humble guy, just genuine, hard worker, Mr. AJ Vaynerchuck. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, brother. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the kind words.
Yeah, absolutely. So we started off straight away with what we're grateful for. So what are you grateful for today?
Oh man, I am grateful for it's easy for my family. I had a nice weekend that got to feature quite a bit of family. I've got a wife and three little kids. We did the very cliche like Northeast fall weather, apple picking, hayride, corn maze type stuff, which was fun with my three little kids. And then I got to hang out with my brother Gary. We watched some football yesterday, so it was a good weekend. Got a good amount of family time.
That's awesome, dude. Did you guys do you guys have like pumpkin patches out there and stuff?
Oh yeah, yeah. Where I live in New York, in the suburbs, like the pumpkin patches and the apple picking and the corn maze is plentiful. There's a lot of it out there. So,
Let's go. How old are your kids?
um, 5.5, 3.5, and almost two.
No way. I
Yeah.
have three boys. I have a 4, 2, and 7 month.
Oh, so very, very
Yeah.
similar. I have girl, boy, girl. That's the one difference.
Oh, that's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. Mhm.
So we get into it and we just do a 2 to 3 minute origin story, your childhood to now. How did you get into Web3? So give me everything you're willing to give me as far
Yeah,
as
of
how you
course.
grew up.
Yeah. So I grew up in Jersey. Um, spent most of my childhood in the same house. Ever since I can remember, the same house. So I was really lucky that way. We moved to the part where I lived when I was two. So, my whole childhood in one area. Both my parents, and then older brother Gary, and then my sister Liz as well. They were both quite a bit older than me. So Gary's 11 years older. So when I was 7, he went to college, and then my sister's about almost 8 years older. So when I was 10 or so, she went off to college. So kind of had two different childhoods, which was interesting. One with siblings and one kind of on an island. Um, but I loved my childhood. I grew up in a great place, great core group of friends. And then as far as like my entrepreneurial journey, what eventually led to Web3 is it actually starts with something, and if you follow my brother, you're gonna be familiar with it in terms of actually garage sailing and like flipping. That's where I learned kind of like the basics of business. It sounds silly anecdotally, but it really is true. Like I would, and this is back in like I'm call it 13, 14, 15. So this is back in like 1999, 2000, 2001, the early 2000s. So there was no iPhone yet. The iPhone didn't come out until like 6 years later. I was a sophomore in college when the iPhone came out. Um, so like going to a garage sale, I couldn't just pull out my phone and scan things and look things up. You actually had to know what you were buying, which made it a little bit more of a like a research based business. But yeah, I learned a lot about doing research on markets, profit margins, because not only is it what you pay for and what you sell it for, but eBay fees and the costs, other costs and things like that, and then like logistics. I was a kid that was, seventh, eighth, ninth grade, and 80% of my childhood bedroom was just like packing supplies and inventory and labels and things like that. And my mom, being the best, she would drive me to the post office 2 to 3 times a week with dozens of packages. And the post office, ladies loved it. Just some random little kid coming in with packages and packages and packages. And but yeah, I mean, I learned a lot about like copywriting and systems and all that stuff. So it really was a great experience. That's what I did, in addition to kind of like working at my dad's liquor store in Jersey to like, you know, classic work ethic type stuff that my parents put me through. Um, and then I went off to college in Boston. That's where I met my wife. And, I wasn't super all in on college, but I went. It was important to my parents. They both left university to immigrate and make a better life for their kids. So that was a little bit of kind of almost like something that was more for them than it was for me. But while I was in there, I was jamming with Gary. We always knew we wanted to do a business together. And so when I graduated, we started our first business together, VaynerMedia, which is now VaynerX. And to speed up the story a little bit, it starts with Bitcoin in 2013. So probably the most important conference for my entrepreneurial journey and my crypto Web3 journey was something called South by Southwest Interactive down in Austin, Texas. And I remember in 2013, Gary would organize kind of a group of entrepreneurs and thinkers in the space, and we would just jam on industry topics. And one of the biggest topics that week was Bitcoin. And I didn't, I'm not gonna lie to you, I didn't fully understand it, but I understood it on a surface level, and I had a lot of respect for the people that were being passionate about it. So I bought a chunk of Bitcoin. Then in 2014, similar conversation, similar setting, led me to buying Ethereum. Then in 2015, Gary and we had a fund that invested in Coinbase's Series B, which was a big hit. And then our crypto journey kind of took a pause, and then really was it was NBA Top Shot in December of 2020 that was kind of my gateway drug into Web3. I was a big sports card collector growing up. I had recently gotten back into sports cards, and I just very easily saw the parallels between NBA Top Shot and NFTs and sports cards. And back to what I was talking about before in terms of being married with 3 kids, like having a bunch of packing supplies and packages. And honestly, I just didn't have the same amount of time running a sports agency and investment fund. And so just the speed at which you could transact, the instant gratification with NBA Top Shot. And then soon after that, I got introduced to Ethereum based NFTs. And then Gary had the idea for VFriends, which I was kind of like a passive advisor slash consultant for. And then, yeah, just became a really avid collector. And then obviously Gary had his success with his project. And then I eventually decided to jump in and launch VaynerSports Pass about a year and a quarter after I first kind of got into Web3 NFTs. And yeah, it's kind of been the journey.
Dude, it's badass for sure. It's pretty sick that you started with garage sailing too, and you were basically running that business out of your house. So that's
100%.
super cool. Yeah. When did you guys launch VaynerSports? Was it January or
So VaynerSports, I mean, it depends
the
on how you
pass? Sorry, the
define it.
pass.
Oh, the pass. The pass was April. So it's been a shade over 6 months, early April.
And when did sorry? So second question, when did you guys actually start VaynerSports?
So VaynerSports was about 6 years ago. I had left VaynerMedia day to day as chief operating officer, took some time off. Gary and I had did a small investment in a boutique sports agency, and during my time away, I landed on the idea of wanting to represent athletes. So Gary and I approached our business partner Brian, and ended up buying a majority. He's still an equity holder and a business partner, but we ended up buying a majority of his boutique agency and rebranded it and started VaynerSports.
That's awesome. And do you love it?
I do. Yeah, it's I loved building VaynerX and VaynerMedia, but I was just always a sports freak. I like the best way I could always describe it was a few different ways, but like the best way I think is with Madden, the video game. All my friends like playing the actual game where you would simulate a football game. I was always in franchise mode, drafting, free agency, trades, cuts.
Yes.
Like it's just the business of sports is always fascinating. Even for me, like growing up a Jets fan And it's been pretty cool because I've become friendly with one of the people that was so involved in this. But like being a diehard sports fan in like my high school, college years, the Jets had a player named Darrelle Revis, who's a stud, Hall of Fame type player. But his original departure from the Jets, excuse me, was a very high profile negotiation between the Jets and his team. And Mike Tannenbaum, who was the GM of the Jets at the time, has become a friend of mine. And just watching that, I was always really fascinated by that part. I was a big draft nick. Carrie and I used to go to the NFL draft every year for years, and so I just always loved the business side of sports. And when we were when we were doing our fund and investing, we also ran into a bunch of athletes along the way, guys like Carmelo Anthony, Draymond Green, Dominican Sue, and talking to them also inspired me to kind of jump in between my service background, the work I was doing in business and entrepreneurship and investing, um, and my passion for it. It just really made sense for me to go chase something I was more passionate about.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think you it's kind of a long time coming almost. If you started
Hmm.
playing Madden and you were like so involved in that, it's funny to see those steps, like how you got there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, to your point, I'm sure that in middle school or high school at some point, when they ask you like what you wanted to be when you grew up, kind of thing, I'm 90% sure my answer was either sports agent or general manager. So I think it was one of those things where I kind of always knew what I wanted, but I took a very indirect and unique path to get there.
Let's go. I love it. All right, so we're gonna get straight into it. So we go word by word. So we start with happiness. I'm gonna share my
Okay,
screen and
cool,
I'm gonna read my favorite definition of success. So
cool.
it's success by Ralph Waldo Emerson. It's to laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate the beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition, to know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded.
I like that a
How do
lot.
you? Yeah,
I've never seen that definition. I love that. That's awesome.
yeah. What's your favorite thing in it?
It actually kind of hit me at the end. The to know that, leaving any one life better because of your existence. That's powerful. And I think that I I've done a lot of like self-analysis, especially when I decided to leave Vayner Media. And I think that in my role now, in a lot of my responsibility is a lot of these athletes entrust their career into my hands, our hands, and I shoulder a lot of that responsibility, and I take that very seriously. And then, like we've talked about, the fact that I have three little kids, five and under, um, yeah, I think I take that responsibility very seriously, and I want to make people's lives better. It's an awesome feeling. There's a lot of satisfaction that comes along with that.
I love it. I love it. Same for me, man. As a dad, like I think just affecting anybody in a positive way and breathing easier for sure is my favorite part because like just knowing that you did good in someone else's life, I think is big.
Yep.
Um, the first question is, what makes you happy every day?
What makes me happy every day? It's a little bit of a cop out, but there's other things here, so I'll get it out the way. Friends and family, like I very much, and that's what drives me is, and I'm very happy about that. I'm going to be very transparent. When I was younger, that's like clear to me now. But when I was in that like 15 to 25 range, I was a really like young and really materially focused individual. Like I got to watch my father and my brother be successful and the benefits that come with that success, whether it's nice houses, great trips, great dinners, etc. And so I think when I was younger, I saw like what could be achieved. I saw the plus of it, while not having to really do any of the things that require to get that stuff, right? And so I definitely think when I was like coming out of school, I was like, I want to build a big business. I want to be rich. Like that's the plan. And then I was really lucky. I achieved that, right? Like Gary and I built a fucking big business, and I got to be very financially secure. And it happened. And like, trust me, I'm not saying like money doesn't mean anything. Money matters, and there's a certain level of lifestyle that I want to be able to maintain. And I was very fortunate that like my parents took care of my college tuition. I want to be able to do that for my kids. Like money matters. I'm not saying it doesn't, but I did learn that there was levels to it and levels to how much it mattered. And I found that the vast majority of my disposable income now is spent on creating more time or more experiences with my friends and family, way more than like I remember when I was like 23, 24 and had some money, I was like into watches. Like I bought, I actually forgot it this morning, but like a month or two ago, I bought like an Apple Watch from like 5 years ago just so I could get like push notifications to my wrist when I'm with my kids so that I'm not checking my phone all the time. Like I used to spend like 10 grand on a watch 10 years ago, and like that'll never happen again. Now, on the flip side, I'm spending like, on NFTs and stuff like that, but it's a little bit of a different thing. But so yeah, that's what makes me happy is just quality time with my friends and my family.
That's cool, man. That's cool. That it's honestly interesting to hear you talk about it, like being that younger sibling and watching, your brother and your dad. Like, it's an interesting perspective, I think, and that's cool to see like that it molded you into who you
Hmm.
are. I think that's really
Yeah.
interesting.
Hmm.
What's the happiest moment of your life?
Ooh, I can't pick one because there's too many that I can give you like a top five rather quickly.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
It's easy. Marrying my wife, the birth of my three kids, and then honestly, it's this is so lame, but it's true, and it speaks to why I do what I do for a living now. Um, the Jets beat the Patriots in the divisional round of a playoff game, and like Gary and I went with two of our other friends, and we went up there with not one iota of belief that the Jets were actually going to win that game, and they won, and the Patriots were the bitter rival, and it was like my favorite sports moment, and I feel like given how much I love sports, that has to be in there. But yeah, like my wedding was unbelievable. Like my wife and like we had the best time. I obviously married like the most important in the world to person in the world to me, and it was one of those weddings where like Mother Nature played ball. We got married on the water in Rhode Island. It was like a fun welcome party the night before, a fun wet like we really just wanted the fun to be the emphasis. We tweaked the wedding. We had a very short ceremony that was like 12 minutes long. We made cocktail hour an extra hour. Like we just looked at it and we're like, hey, like we've been to a bunch of weddings. What did we wish everybody else did? Shorter ceremony, longer cocktail hour, like more dancing, live band. So it was a blast. And then obviously, yeah, like the kids. And what was really cool about the kids and why I say each of it for me, and not everybody's this way, not everybody ascribes to this, but what I think made it special to me and why each of them individually is in that list is all three were a surprise from a gender perspective. So I just think that it was such an insane moment of such intense life changing moment of like for me it was like all right 10 fingers and 10 toes they're breathing like the first minute or two is just like I pray that this baby's healthy, but the first one I didn't care at all because I wanted to have boys and girls. So the first one I didn't care at all, ended up being a girl. And then the second one, I'm not gonna lie, it's the truth,
Yeah.
I really wanted the second one to be a boy because I didn't want to stress the third one. That was the thinking. I was like, if this one's a girl, then I'm gonna really stress out. And my wife and I always had a plan on three. We always only wanted three, and so I was like, man, like it's gonna be really stressful. And I give a lot of love to my son, and my wife, and I guess myself. Like, and my son came out second, and then my third one was house money. Again, I didn't care. Like first one I didn't
Yeah.
care, third one I didn't care, second one I did care purely. Same thing. If I had a boy first, I would have wanted a girl second, just so the third one could be stress free house money and just you're hoping for happy and healthy. And I was very fortunate that it kind of broke that way for all three, and that's what my wife and I wanted, and we were fortunate enough to get it that way.
That's awesome, dude. You're my type of guy. That's the same wedding I had, so I love that. The partying, the dancing is more important than the ceremony type
Yeah.
thing. I love that, man, about your kids. Like that's so cool. That would stress me out not knowing what it was gonna be. I don't
Right,
know
exactly, and
why. Yeah.
that's why I quantified it because like I knew like both my sister-in-laws needed to know, my sister needed to know, and so like it's funny. A quick anecdote that was kind of fun. This is a good little lesson for anybody that wants to be a good husband or wife, or I think this is in the category of a good tip. We go to the first doctor appointment, the first big one. We've been to a few, but we went to the one that was at like 14 weeks where you could find out the gender. And we go to that appointment, and I went to every appointment for our first kid. Um, and then we're at that 14-week appointment. Everything's looking good. And then the doctor goes, do you guys want to know the gender? And I kid you not, I swear on my life, I never once thought about whether I wanted to know or not. It's just like somehow, which is so stupid and absent-minded. But I'm literally there, and the doctor's looking at us, and I was like, man, I like internally, I'm like, I've never actually decided whether I care or not. And I look over to my wife, Allie, and she's like, I think I want to wait. And in that moment, I'm like, all right, she's clearly thought about it. I clearly haven't. Since I haven't thought about it, I don't care. So I should just roll with her. And I just look at the doctor. I'm like, yeah, I think we want to wait. And that's how it got decided. And then I loved the experience so much of not knowing the first time that it was pretty easy for us to double down and go with it on the second and third time.
that's that's awesome. That's a cool story.
Yeah.
That's a fun moment you can always remember for sure.
I remember it
Uh,
vividly because it hit me so hard. I'm like, holy crap, I really didn't think about this at all. That's wild.
That's awesome. Let's go. All right, let's move straight into inspiration.
Okay.
I just want to say that you inspire me, man, by just being, when I met you in New York City, I was like, fuck, man, this guy's the real deal. You were so genuine and humbling and talked to me and Josh, NFT Loverboy, about like the business and everything coming. And so that was super awesome. So I should say you inspire me to keep
Thank you.
going.
Thank you.
What is one lesson in your life that you've had to learn the hard way?
Ooh, that's a great question. I don't think I've ever been asked that before. One lesson in life that you had to learn the hard way. Um, I've got a good one, and I'm very fortunate that I learned it the hard way and not the ultimate worst way. Um, I was diagnosed with something called Crohn's disease at 19. And I'm actually, if I seem low energy, please, it's not because I'm not excited, but I actually had a flare up this morning and like on the rebound of not feeling so great. But I've been really lucky. It's like I said, it's been very much for the most part under control for a long time, but there was a period of time where it wasn't. Um, so I was diagnosed in 19, and then there was a period in which I want to say I'm 26, maybe 27. And I go through a 12-month period where I go to the emergency room 4 times in a 12-month period due to my battle with Crohn's. And what ended up happening after like numerous visits and consultations, what ended up happening was basically the Crohn's had like beat up a very small and specific region of my intestine. And my doctor um, did a great job, helped me a lot. Was like, listen, you know, I know it's not exciting to get surgery. I'm not going to lie to you. This is not a fun surgery because in order to pull it off, you actually have to completely tear your abdomen in one spot. And so, like, the recovery actually kind of
Shit.
blows where, like, you basically have no use for your midsection, your core for a few weeks, like 3 or 4 weeks it took to be, like, even, like, I was scared to sneeze for about a month because sneezing was the worst
Holy
because
shit.
you contract, you don't realize
Oh,
it, you contract. So anyway, but he said, he's like, listen, based on like the imaging, I actually think it's going to help you a lot. So we went ahead. My surgeon did a great job. My doctor did a great job with the recommendation. And I actually haven't been to the emergency room since. So it's been almost like 8 or 9 years. So it was a successful surgery. And so the lesson that I learned, and I consider my experience with Crohn's and trips to the ER and the surgery, and even like this morning, the lesson though, and I do call my Crohn's a little bit of a blessing in disguise, is that I think it really was the ultimate in perspective. My brother was great about teaching perspective, and he taught it to me, and he teaches it now to millions. And it was good, and it was helpful, and I always thought I had pretty good perspective. But I think getting hit with an autoimmune disease that really can be debilitating at times, that was a lesson that I was forced to learn about keeping things in perspective, not overreacting to maybe something that happens in business negatively. I'm not the type to get too high or too low. I keep an even keel. And I think that was a lesson that I learned in part by my brother, but really got the smack in the face when I got diagnosed with Crohn's back, I guess, 16 years ago now.
holy shit, man. Well, fuck. First of all, thanks for showing up after having the flare up, man. I really appreciate
No
that.
worries. Yeah.
So it doesn't go away, I'm guessing, ever, or is
There's no
there?
cure. There's no cure
Okay.
yet. There are varying levels of medication that can help you basically deal with it. I've had a really good run post surgery, primarily just focusing on like stress management, diet, and exercise. Dietarily, it's actually a tough disease because most people who have Crohn's have different restrictions. It's not one size fits all. It's a little bit custom. But I have a lot of dietary restrictions. So dairy free, caffeine free, alcohol free, gluten free, which is a lot. Rules
Wow.
out a lot of good stuff. And I like to
Yeah.
eat. But thankfully, yeah, I'm doing solid. And that surgery was a huge success and
Yeah.
helpful.
That's awesome, man. Crazy like self-awareness moment, I bet, for you to go
Exactly,
in. Yeah.
exactly.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
and it was. I actually checked myself into the emergency room when I was a sophomore in college. I talk about like self awareness. I had stomach problems growing up. I definitely had Crohn's before 19, but immigrant family, not the like we're not the best about taking care of ourselves. My relatives weren't great. I just thought I had stomach problems because I ate a ton of candy and drank soda and but then when I got to college and everybody was doing the same and eating the same and I was the one that was suffering, that's when I had one particularly bad morning. I was just like, I need to go get checked out. I'm broken.
Yeah. No, that's awesome, man, that you had that awareness to go. What do you love about Web3 that inspires you to do it every day?
I love innovation. I'm a huge fan of like disruption and innovation. Um, I'm so fascinated by what Web3 can enable, what industries and markets it can uphold, like overturn. Like, I believe live ticketing for concerts and sporting events are ripe for disruption. I think important documentation like your college diploma, the title to your house, even like loyalty programs. Starbucks came out and talked about it. So I just think there's a lot. Um, I just think there's a lot that it can make better, and that excites me. Like technology that makes life better gets me going. So examples of that is was a early investor in Uber, was an early investor in Venmo, and those were two products. Like I interned in San Francisco between my junior and senior year of college, and Uber came out. I want to say a year or two after that, maybe 2 years after my internship in San Francisco. Uber came out, and the founder, who Gary and I knew, lived in San Francisco and built Uber because the taxi system and the public railways were just not good enough. And I was like, yeah, I had the same experience when I was in San Francisco. Like there are like the trolleys and this and the other thing, but cabs are a nightmare. And I was lucky. I had spent a lot of time in New York City and I spent a lot of time in San Francisco and I saw the stark contrast and I felt like Uber was needed. And then same thing with Venmo, like dealing with cash and splitting bills with friends and splitting, cable bills or rent with roommates. When I was first shown Venmo by a friend of ours in New York and we got the demo, instantly I'm like, this makes life so much better. Like we should never deal with cash. And so that's what I like about Web3. I see the path for it making life better and better for consumers and better for corporations too, because of the royalties and things of that nature.
That's incredible. Yeah, I could. You said it the best way possible, man. I think the future is bright, and I'm really excited to be here. That's why I'm a holder in VSP. I think it's just like you guys are just doing things, and that's just not because you're here. That's just because like literally you guys are doing things that are changing the game, and with your tickets and your raffles and your raffle tech, I think
Thank
is
you.
is really incredible. Um, do you have an inspirational leader or someone you've looked up to throughout your life?
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly just the truth. I would say it's a combination of I was the baby in the family, and we had a pretty tight, small family. I didn't have a lot of cousins, and it was a very small family. Like I have two first cousins, right? Like that's it. Um, and even like grandparents, when I was born, three of my four grandparents were already gone. So like very, very small family that had left, the former Soviet Union. And so a lot of my inspiration came from, my mom and my dad and my brother and my sister, and all in their own different categories and all with their, what's cool about our family, I think a lot of families, but we're pretty unique, the five of us. My mom and dad are very different. And then me, my brother, and my sister were very different. Now, Gary and I are probably the most similar of the five. I think a lot of that just comes from like a shared interest. And then I think a lot of it also comes from like to call a spade. A lot of how I think about the world and business stems from like what he taught me, right? Because he was 11 years older. And so not that he was a father figure, because I had a father, but being 11 years older is a really stark difference, and it is more of a hybrid of father slash brother than it is true brother. And so, and because of my dad and how much he worked and his style, um, I just spent the most time like asking questions and learning about life and how to navigate through life through my brother.
That's awesome, man. That's so cool. I think you're right. I think a lot of families have those different, those different people that you can look up to, or just different aspects that you can learn from. And I think that translates to life. Like, you find people every day. Like, there's stuff that, for example, I could learn from Gary. There's stuff I could learn from you. There's stuff I
Right.
could learn from Kevin Rose. Like, that's what I
Yep.
think is cool. And you just information gather, and then you do what you like, how you would do it. And I think
Exactly.
that's true. Like, how you can improve your own life. What's your favorite inspirational movie?
That's a good question. I'm not a huge movie buff, but I've seen enough to have an answer. Inspirational movie.
I feel like it's got to be a sports movie, right?
Yeah, maybe. I'm struggling with this one. Inspiration. I got to be honest. It's a little bit of a cop out answer. I'm not one that I'm not one that does a heavy dose of like seeking out inspiration. Um, I think that I think inspiration was so instilled in me as a little kid because again, like if you really just look at it objectively, what my mom and my dad pulled off is legitimately the Webster's Dictionary version of the American dream of like come to America, leave a terrible country, come with no money, no language, and a 3 year old. When they came to America and landed in Queens, Gary's 3 and my mom's pregnant, or my sister. Yeah, my mom's pregnant with my sister, and she comes a couple months later. Like my mom, I think my mom shows up like 6 months pregnant to America, and so to have like two parents that started there, and then I came. They came to America. I was born 8 years later. By the time I was born, like my family was already on the way up, right? Like so, I had a very interesting childhood where probably like the first few years of my life, we were probably like fine, but not even middle class. I would just say we were fine. Then when I was like, you know, elementary school, middle school, we were probably nicely middle class. Then like early high school, we were probably like upper middle class, and then like college, we were upper class. Like what that dynamic looked like in terms of what I got to see was very interesting, and it was really like 3, 4, 5 stages of like where our family was from like a financial perspective in terms of security and all that. And so, um, just like work ethic and authenticity and honesty and keeping promises and all that stuff was so drilled into me so heavily that I think that like inspirational content um, just hasn't been like a huge. And then I think honestly, like I guess the long and short of it is that I feel like I live with inspiration between like my parents, my brother, my sister, and so I don't know. I don't have a good answer. Like I'm trying. I'm
No,
not even
I
like
think it's
I was
better. I think
trying
it's
to.
better.
I was trying to simultaneously answer you that way while trying to think of an answer, and I'm coming up blank.
You just have inspiration from within, and I think that's like probably the way more powerful than a movie. So you have that ingrained in you, and you find it from different places, which is incredible for sure.
Yeah, I think maybe my best answer to it, so that I don't give a non-answer, is I've been working with a mental performance coach for the last couple of years. I'm a big advocate of just mental health. Before having my surgery, I sought out therapy, and it really helped me handle what I was going through. And so I think the brain has kind of the two sides of offense and defense, therapy being great for when you're struggling, and then mental performance being great for when things are fine, but you want them to be better. When things are good and you want them to be great. And I think I'm able to pull out a lot of inspiration from my conversations through that.
Yeah, no, I think, and I also think making a positive conversation around therapy. I think
Mhm.
that's something that's like frowned upon in our society is therapy
I
itself, and
agree.
I think therapy is absolutely incredible in every single way possible
I
to
agree.
grow as a person.
I agree. Therapy absolutely carried me through my last, call it like 18 months of my darkest time in terms of my physical health.
It's incredible, man. Appreciate you sharing that. So let's just move into positivity. This is you kind of been talking about it, so we're just going to touch on it. But under positivity, I'm on a journey to make positivity louder every single
Hmm.
day. I'm just at it, at it, at it. I feel like it's my mission to do that. And so what I talk about in this segment is positive mindset. And just a quick little definition is the practice on focusing on the good in any situation. And when I
Hmm.
say that is I don't mean on like being delusional to the bullshit that happens, but it's always focusing on the good. So can you talk to me about how you have a positive mindset or how that's helped
Yeah,
you throughout your life?
like you said, we touched upon it a little bit. I think that I believe that outside of a small subset of circumstances, death in the family, terminal illness, things like that, outside of a very small instance of circumstances, that even everything that happens bad, you can find positivity from. I think the best example, we already touched upon it. I have an autoimmune disease that has no cure, but I truly believe, and this isn't, like you said, I think it's important, this isn't any delusion. And this is not what I thought when it first happened, right? This is something that's developed over 15 plus years. I truly think that my Crohn's has been a blessing in disguise, despite it sending me to the ER, ruined my morning this morning, all that stuff, um, because I think it has allowed me to actually take care of myself in a better way, both mentally and physically. One, as much as I enjoy donuts and ice cream and soda and beer, most of these things are not good for you, right? And so the fact that like my Crohn's has indirectly led me to cutting out those things out of my system in such a significant way, I think has been a big plus. And then I think it's been a real cornerstone for the perspective that we talked about earlier. And I think that's been a huge benefit for me in handling tough times, is having a stronger foundation of perspective so that I'm better equipped to deal with things that are, I would say, if you ask like my friends and my family, probably my most respected skill, I guess, is handling bad situations calmly. Like everybody always says, like, how are you so like even right now? How are you so calm? Because I'm like, because it's okay. And I also think it comes with confidence. Like I also believe in myself to figure this out. And when you have those two things, I think it makes handling tough stuff better.
Yeah, dude, I love that, man. I think one of the most powerful things I ever like tricked my not even tricked my mind, but just started like believing was to not worry. Because
Yeah,
worrying doesn't help in any situation. Like even
no,
if
it
your
doesn't.
house is burning down, you got to take a deep breath and you got to focus on what you can do in that situation. So that was
Yeah,
incredible.
something that I still struggle with, and it's still a topic when talking to like others, and something that I'm working on is I um I actually dread the unknown more than I dread a bad thing, right? So like I do worry, and a little bit it comes from like I feel like a little bit like the operator in me is that I'm always kind of thinking about a few chess moves ahead, and I'm trying to train myself not to worry about something, but to instead deal with it as it happens, because I'm comfortable when things are negative and I'm able to handle it. But I do create stress and anxiety for anticipating things. And a lot of times that thing that I'm anticipating ends up not being bad. Like, a good example in my business is on the sports agency side. Like, if I'm trying to get a new recruit, a highly sought after recruit, we have a final meeting and they make us wait 2 or 3 days before we get a final decision. I stress the final decision, and what ultimately happens is if we get the recruit, I'm elated, and that stress was a complete waste of time. And if we don't get the recruit, I find the positivity in it. It's not the end of the world, and it's onward and upward. And so, if I'm so good at handling either side of the outcome, why am I stressing the process? And so, that's something I need to work on.
Yeah, it's a balance game, man, for sure, and that just comes with experiencing it more. I think. Um, That's awesome, man. Okay, let's move into enthusiasm. This is my shit. I'm an exciting guy.
Yep.
They call me the hype man of Web3. I'm just pumped to be awake every single day. I'm so grateful. It just energizes me. I've been called tornado my whole life. What are three things that you can't get enough of right now? What are three things you're obsessed with?
Um, I would say one thing I'm obsessed with is just like the development of my kids. I'm not gonna lie. I don't love the super early stages of having a child. Like, I'm just being honest, and I know that a lot of people do, and my wife
Yeah.
does, and my mom does. So like, I'm a little like, but I'm really excited about like my youngest, who's almost 2. Like she's really verbal, and it's really been cool to just see her like she just learned how to say what happened. So like I was up with the kids early on Sunday last week, and like I had breakfast made, and I'm doing my wife and I, we have a really good system. It actually works great for us. I sleep in on Saturdays, she sleeps in on Sundays. Sleep in's like 8:30, but
Yeah.
our kids are up at like 6, so I get to spend once a weekend I'm spending like 2 hours just me and the kids, and just seeing like either my daughter's super smart, she's in kindergarten, just like seeing her, like she's really artistic, and like just seeing her progress as an artist, or she's taking gymnastics and now she's able to do like headstands and stuff. And then my son, like he's 3.5, and seeing his like my son was a little bit like go with the flow, because he had an older sister who was pretty bossy and like whatever said. But now like seeing him being a little bit more cognitive and like understanding sports better and things like that. And then like my youngest, what I was saying was she started to learn stuff. So she, like, I had her set up on breakfast, and I gave her tablet to watch Encanto. And like, I guess I didn't realize that my wife and I forgot to charge the tablet. It died pretty much like a minute after I gave it to her. And she's just sitting there, like, eating her scrambled eggs. She's just like, what happened? Like, chugging, what happened? Like, to see like that development is sick. Other stuff I'm excited by. Um, VaynerSports and VaynerSports Pass. Like honestly, we got 2 young businesses that are going really well, and I feel like we're disrupting. I feel like we're making things better and easier for the athletes. So I'm really excited by that. And then the third thing I'm excited by, in general, I've just really enjoyed. Like I've been going to the city more often. I live in the burbs. I used to go in the city twice a week before COVID, and then COVID hit. I've stayed away for a long time, and then it's just been really nice because even though COVID has been like, I'm not gonna say that COVID's over because it's obviously not over, but our society has adapted to living with COVID the same way we lived with like the flu. And only just recently have I almost kind of like broken the routine, because I got used to not leaving the burbs, but I've pushed myself to go into the city more often. I've really enjoyed just the additional human interaction and going to coffees with people I haven't met before, and dinners, and seeing the team and stuff like that. So those 3 things. The thing that I'm not excited about is the weather turning up here, but that's
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
happens every year.
Uh, One of the coolest things what you said about your daughter was like, I can relate to that because my oldest son, so he just turned 4, and when we would get in the neighborhood, in our neighborhood, we have tons of Halloween lights, like the best
Yep,
Halloween lights, and so he would unbuckle and like walk up to the front, and we have a Suburban, and so we started saying like, Bo, you need to ask us, like, you need to ask us if you can unbuckle, so you don't just
yep.
unbuckle when we're driving,
I know. I
and
know
it was
that.
like, yeah, like 3 times, and then now it's, hey mom, dad, can I unbuckle? And
Yep.
it's like the greatest thing ever in the entire universe. I don't even know how to describe it. I'm sure it was like your experience, but like incredible.
Well, it's just wild that like our role is we get to mold these people that become functioning members of society, right? Like it's up to us. Now, there's some level of DNA, but I believe in nature and nurture, and it's everything that you do with your child has a big long-term impact.
That's awesome. Are we dead? Are we hard
I I've
stop?
got no, I can go 5 more. Let's do 5 more.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool. Okay, what's the best question? Let's I got 2. What has been the biggest accomplishment of your life?
Um, Biggest accomplishment. I'll split that up because I think there's personal and professional. I think the personal one is obviously interesting. It's just like building this family that I have. And then my biggest accomplishment would be maintaining that, and helping my kids flourish and all that. But I'll give you a professional one because I think that's like an easy answer and an obvious one. I think that my biggest accomplishment actually just happened. It's not necessarily the biggest from a financial perspective, or even the biggest from like an impact perspective, but it was really important to me. Um, so I'm certified as an NFL agent, and I had 2 clients that entered free agency this past spring: Foye Luakun and DJ Reed Foye plays now, was formerly of the Falcons, now plays for the Jaguars, and DJ used to be a Seahawk, now he's a Jet. And these are two guys that I had a very close relationship with. DJ, since he left Kansas State, he had been a VaynerSports client since coming out of college, and then Foye for about the 2 years leading into that spring. And they were two clients. Like, we have 100+ clients at VaynerSports, but both of those clients, I'm their lead agent, and I'm the lead agent for less than 10 guys. Like, because
Wow.
I'm so involved in the other 100 something, I can't.
Of
There's
course.
only so many guys I can be the lead agent for, and so going through that process of educating the guys, preparing them for the experience, walking them through how we get from point A to point B, and then in turn, getting contracts for both guys that I think were objectively great contracts. There's media articles highlighting how well the contracts were done and accomplished and how good it was for the player. It was above expectations because I talked to all 32 teams and gauged their expectations. And the reason why it was such a big accomplishment for me was because that was such an immense amount of responsibility I felt on my shoulders because DJ getting 33 million and Foye getting 45 million, that's the type of money that not only sets them up for life but sets their kids up for life and probably their kids up for life, right? And so these are two people that really entrusted their family's security in my hands and VaynerSports' hands. And so I took that very seriously. You can ask my wife, I was dumb stressed, especially in like the few days leading up to free agency and the couple days into free agency. And, successfully getting these guys contracts that they deserved was just a huge accomplishment. It
Yeah.
wasn't about the
That's
money that we would make or I would make. It was about the money that they got to make and that they earned and deserved.
That's incredible, man. That's so cool. It's going to be awesome for people to hear that are sports fans for sure. All right, two more things. So under dreams, right? I used to say that I was a delusional optimist, but now I say that I'm a deliberate optimist because you got to be deliberate about your dreams. So I'm going to put you on the spot, but this is good. Everybody freaking crushes this. So I'm going to ask you what the dream is you have for your life, but I'm going to read you mine. Okay. I'm Gentle Tornado. I am an honest, enthusiastic, and successful man that will inspire others to live their life through happiness.
I love that. I would define my dream of what I hope to be um, is I want to be remembered, and I think I will be remembered as somebody that was loving, put others first, was supportive, was somebody that was always very fair and transparent. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm a sugarcoater, but I'm also not, I'm not a negative person. And yeah, I want my kids to remember me as somebody that, and my wife, that somebody that loved them, did everything for them, maybe didn't do everything that they wanted, but did it with the perspective of what I thought was right for them and was best for them. And then in business, I have a business partner named Brandon Parker. Brandon's father is a gentleman named the late great Eugene Parker. He unfortunately passed away a few years ago, and I've had the pleasure by being close to Brandon, working with Brandon, and then just being in this industry and taking meetings with Brandon. The way our contemporaries talk about Brandon's father is the way I want people to talk about me when I go, just in terms of how great he was, not only at his job but the way he treated people, and yeah, I think the way people talk about Eugene Parker professionally is the way I want people to talk about me.
Dude, I have chills right now. I'm going to read you the way that we're going to end this. I'm going to read you my favorite poem and something that means something super dear to my heart. And it's going to relate to what you just said. So I'm going to share my screen. It's called The Dash. It's by Linda Ellis. So it says, I read of a man who stood to speak at the funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on the tombstone from beginning to end. He noted that first came the date of birth and spoke of the following date with tears. But he said what mattered most of all was the dash between those years. For that dash represents all the time they spent alive on earth, and now only those who love them know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spend our dash. So think about this long and hard. Are there things you'd like to change? For you never know how much time is left that can still be rearranged. To be less quick to anger and show appreciation more, and love the people in our lives like we've never loved before. If we treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remembering that this special dash might only last a little while. So when your eulogy is being read with your life's actions to rehash, would you be proud of the things they say about how you lived your dash?
I love that. That's spot on. I love that.
Yeah. All right, man. I want you to just leave the audience with one final thought. Just give them one, whatever you want, one final thought from AJ Vaynerchuck.
Um, be be someone that has perspective, that cherishes, and finds the positivity in everything. It's an easier life to live, honestly. I think that I it's also something I'll say. It's also something I think you can work on, whether it's through your own self care, therapy, mental performance. I think I'm somebody that was kind of 50-50 genetically, where I could find like the good and the bad and everything, and I could be negative, I could be positive, and I think over the last 20 years, I've chipped away, chipped away, chipped away, and have skewed the scales towards the positivity. It's not 100%, but it's just an easier life to live, and I think perspective is so important. So if something bad happens at work, like keep in mind that your wife and kids are healthy, your parents are still around, things of that nature. I think that's so important. It just leads to a better life.
Let's go, man. Thanks for coming on, AJ.
Of course.
This is Hyped Happy Hour episode 26. Everybody like, share, subscribe, share it with anybody that you think will help. Thanks.
Appreciate it, Tornado.